Hello, everyone. My name is Chrishell, and this is my story. You know, I'm going to be 52 in a couple days, and sometimes when I think about what my salvation story is, what my healing story is, what my forgiveness story is, it gets a little muddled. And so, because there's a lot of layers to that story. But I think that the best place of starting is where I started at, and that is New Orleans. I was born in New Orleans. I don't have an accent, as they say, but I was definitely born in New Orleans with all the po' boys and the Bourbon Street and all the family and the fun and all those things. And so that was where I began. And just like many Southerners, I can't remember a time that I didn't know God, I guess. I didn't know a time that I didn't go to church. I don't remember a time really in my beginning. And I can even remember my mom saying one time she wasn't going, and I asked, how come we can't go to that building, talking about the church? So I can't remember a time that I didn't know about the essence of God, if I can say that. I can't say I knew God, but I knew the essence of God. Like most typical Southern families, black, white, all colors. We went to church with somebody, and that somebody with me a lot of times was my great grandmother, and then other times it was my mother. I remember going to church with my great grandmother because she was in the choir, and I would. Then sometimes on Sundays we would go as a family. I remember coming in there, and when the music would start, this is a Baptist church. Greatest St. Stephen's, full gospel Baptist church. When the music started and the pastor started to sing, I would start to cry. And I didn't know why. I didn't know what that was. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know, but I knew that place was different. I knew that place, I felt something different. I had no name for it. Keep going. Just like many kids that are in Baptist churches, I was baptized with my sisters. I think all three of them, I believe, at least with one of them. And I remember us um, being baptized in white and all those things. And the pastor asking me, why did I want to get baptized? And I said, well, I want to get baptized because my mama said so. And he said, oh, yeah, basically, that's cute, but it's because you love Jesus, right? And I said, yes. Of course, I was 5'6", something like that. I don't know if I love Jesus or not. I was just doing what was customary to do in the South. I kind of think of this sometimes. I traveled a lot later on in life, and I traveled to Muslim countries, and I kind of think of the tradition of the South with Christianity is kind of the tradition that Islam has some time where they just were born into it. They don't really know why. They don't know, the inner workings of it. Just because I was always a Muslim, or I'm always a Christian, which is a common thing that we'll hear in the South. So. But I can't say that I really knew God. I knew of God, and I knew like a semblance of right and wrong because it's there, but I don't know if I really knew God. And so, so many things happened in my childhood, so many dysfunctions, so many things that were good, but also a lot of things that were bad that caused me to spiral in different ways, spiral in the way I saw myself, my weight, and things that I did to keep my weight down, or spiral in the way I thought about myself, and all those things. And of course, not really knowing these things, not giving a name to them. I didn't have a name. That was in the 80s. There was no name. I just knew I had to fit in, or some things didn't fit in. And I don't know where God fit in all that stuff. And so, overall, like many people say, my family was a loving family. My family had believed in God. We, I have a lot of my thoughts about life and even my current family from my family. Family comes first. But even that mentality of family come first give me could not satisfy the deep longing I had inside for something else. I didn't know what the something else was. And I remember my aunt, one of my aunts, well, one of my favorite aunts, she was bringing us home. She said, Chrishell, you never smile. And I think at that point I must have been like 9 or 10. I was young, but there was so much pain in my inside that I had lost my smile. Of course, I didn't realize it. I didn't realize how serious I was and how much I had lost my smile or my happiness or my joy or anything like that. I didn't realize that, but she did. So fast forward a couple years later, I remember my mom and my stepdad and my sisters and I had moved to somewhere else. We had moved from New Orleans to Baton Rouge, and we moved again somewhere in Baton Rouge. And I remember one Saturday that these kids came knocking on the door of our townhouse, and they were from Jimmy Swaggart Ministries or Family Worship Center, which is a church in was, I guess it still is there, in Baton Rouge, and they were a bunch of teenagers, and I remember their names. It was that profound for me. Um, I remember them coming in and they're just knocking on the door, inviting us to youth group or whatever, Crossfire. And so, or actually they're inviting us to church that Sunday because that's what I remember, first church. And so we went, my mama was always um, open. My mom was always open to whatever made us happy. And so if this made us happy, she was going to figure out a way to do it. And so some kind of way, some Sunday, I don't know how we got there. I'm sure she had to have brought me at least. I remember in that big old family worship center, and they were singing, all that old Southern gospel. But I remember the song they were singing, going up yonder. If anybody asks you where I'm going, where I'm going to, and then it's kind of go, I'm going up yonder. And for some reason, that was their altar call. And I don't know, that touched my heart, even at a 12-year-old. That it's like that, whatever that call was, to that they were calling, I wanted. And I remember going down to the altar, and I think that's where I can say I officially was saved. And I'm thinking that was around 1998, 1999. It's somewhere around there, but I know it's there. And then from there, meaning my sisters and I, started going to the youth group Crossfire. And I would say that going to a youth group during my teenage years is what's probably kept me and saved me and helped me not to get off track, even after salvation. I really believe that because we found a community in the youth group. We found love in the youth group, a different kind of love, not the same kind of love from family, but community. And so we kept going, and we actually stayed in this, and once some things happened at that first family worship center, we switched and went to a different church with the youth pastor to Hosanna. And Hosanna is where I and my sisters and I, and my mother eventually, we kind of made our home until I went to college. And there were so many memories there that solidified my salvation. But I think even more than the memories of my youth group or my youth pastors or my pastor at that time, Glenn Berto, I think one of the biggest things I remember is the love of God. Like that love I can't explain. And I can always say I'm a lover, not a fighter, and that's true. But I think the love of God compared to no love I have ever felt before. And that love gave me peace. It changed my countenance. It made me happy. It made me more friendly. I would say it made me smarter because I really believe that Jesus loved me and that I could pray about anything. So I prayed about everything because that's what the Bible said to do. And people will say, oh, that's naive. Well, back then I was naive, I guess. But my naivety got me answers from God, and it kept me through a teenage life, sometimes at home that was not that great. And so I think, looking back now, like I said, again, this has been, I guess, 30, almost 40 something years. I can sit here in hindsight and say, well, where I'm at right now currently is because of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But I know it's not true. I know that God had done so many things in my life that led me through a path that I could have never done. And I could have never been that way because it wasn't where I was going. I don't know where I was going. I don't know where I would end up at. I jokingly tell people that without Christ, I could have ended up on Bourbon Street. I could have ended up doing something that was not righteous. I could have ended up doing things that were not in the character of God. But because of his grace and his kindness, and most of all, for me, his love. It wasn't the rules, and because I was a rule follower. It was the love that I felt. It was the presence of the Holy Spirit. And so, after I left Baton Rouge. I went off to college to Southwestern Sims University, which is now Nelson. And then from there, I did all, types of missions trips. And then I eventually became a teacher and, all those things, that the world says is important. And eventually holding a doctor's degree, which is amazing to even say, Dr. Lewis, that's what I am. But all those things I know that they wouldn't have happened without the foundation of Christ in my life, without the foundation of knowing that I have a I have a maker. That's a song, and today I have a maker. He knows my name. He knows my heart. Those things. I know that without Christ, I would have had none of those things. And so I think, here I am, turning 52 pretty soon, and I sit back and I look over my life, and I can honestly say that I have no regrets. If God was to call me home tomorrow, I have no regrets. I've been loved by my family. I've been loved by my husband. I've been I've had the privilege to have a child and be loved by him. I've been loved by my extended family. I've had blessings of friends. I've done all those things that the world says are important. But most of all, for me, I say I have no regrets because I know that Jesus found me in 1998 on Nehru Avenue in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And that because he found me, my destiny was formed to his will. And I think even through my turns and my twists, and even the times where I got mad at God, and still do sometimes, I still know that without him, I am nothing. Without him, I can do nothing. Without him, I can be nothing. Without him, I can go nowhere. And so I think my story is a story of it's a story of redemption, but I think it's a story of love. I think that's the biblical narrative. It's like, I know you, Chrishell. I know you, whomever, I know you. And because I know you, I call you. And I think that is what I did. I responded to the call. I responded even though I didn't know as my naive 12-year-old mind, but I knew that call was stronger than strong and I needed to follow it. So if I was to ask myself, because I'm interviewing myself, if I was to ask myself what salvation means to me, salvation means love. That's what it means. It means that a God who is eternal, a God who is the Alpha and Omega, a God who has the whole world to take care of, and all these humans that he has to manage, I guess, that this God would come down and say, knock, 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 Chrishell, I see you, and I see you're lost, and I see you have no hope, and I see that you think you're not loved, but I'm going to step into your life and love you, and continue to love you, and continue to forgive you for the rest of your life. So for me, salvation means love.